All right, let's get right into it. This is Eyes on Intel's Deep Dive, and today we are providing a comprehensive overview of the Ohio Immigrant Alliance's alarming They Walk Among Us report. In this explainer, we are going to look strictly at the data, the findings, and the profound questions raised by this document regarding our nation's immigration enforcement agencies. The report paints a picture of systemic failures, detailing criminal actions by specific agents and proposing direct solutions. It's definitely heavy material, but understanding this data is absolutely crucial for anyone interested in law enforcement accountability and public safety.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the 59 criminal agents identified, the failure of vetting, institutional cover and culture, the deadly consequences on the streets, who is ultimately responsible, and finally, the proposed path forward. Let's get started.
Section 1. The 59 criminal agents.
This entire report really hinges on one shocking number: 59. The Ohio Immigrant Alliance tracked down 59 specific ICE and Border Patrol agents who have engaged in severe physical and sexual abuse, and the authors make a really vital distinction here. We aren't just talking about a few quote-unquote bad apples. They argue these agents are actually symptoms of a massive systemic failure in vetting and accountability.
When you actually break down the offenses committed by these 59 individuals, a pretty horrifying pattern emerges. 85% of these cases involve sex offenses. And, to put this into perspective, nearly 2/3 of those targeted children. These are predatory crimes, plain and simple, which is why the report argues that some of the most dangerous people in law enforcement are literally hiding within these agencies.
Section 2. A failure of vetting. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do people with these backgrounds actually get a badge? Well, the data points to what the report calls a hire first, ask later policy across recent administrations. Basically, in a rush to meet staffing quotas, they allegedly bypassed thorough background checks. This meant applicants with glaring red flags, like pending domestic violence charges, were just handed a weapon and walked right through the front door.
Take a look at the timeline of Dana Ray Thornhill. This guy was arrested for sexual assault at age 13 and actually served time in juvenile corrections. But despite that documented history, he was hired by the Border Patrol as an adult and stayed there for almost 20 years. The report highlights cases like this to show that this wasn't just a simple oversight, It was an active, institutional choice.
And it gets worse. This vetting failure creates what the report cleverly, or maybe tragically, terms the Peter principle of predators. This is what happens when individuals with criminal records are the ones overseeing the background checks for others. The report points to Brashad Johnson as an example. He actually oversaw DHS background checks despite having his own conviction for soliciting prostitution involving a minor. When the people holding the safety net are predators themselves, the whole system just collapses.
Section 3. Institutional cover and culture. Now, what happens after these agents are hired and actually get caught? The report points heavily to a culture of institutional protectionism. Take Efren Lopez Cornejo, for example. He was charged with 14 felonies involving 8 years of familial abuse. And his outcome? A plea deal, literally 0 jail time, and he didn't even have to register as a sex offender. It's a stark comparison that the authors use to argue agents are treated with way more leniency than the general public.
The report describes this as an above-the-law mentality. It highlights John Daly III, whose colleagues allegedly just ignored his history as a serial rapist, or Juan David Ortiz, literal serial killer who was operating from within the agency. It also points to high-level political shielding. For instance, the report cites Michael Banks, whose sexual misconduct investigation was allegedly shut down abruptly during Secretary Kristi Noem's era. The message this sends down the ranks is pretty clear. You can operate with total impunity.
According to the findings, this reflects a deeply embedded culture where vulnerable populations are completely dehumanized. You have agents like Ramon Marquez and Andrew Golubic committing vile acts of abuse against women and children placed in their trust. Meanwhile, agents like Samuel Saxon and Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles demonstrate this terrifying trend of domestic violence and murder. The report argues that this culture basically transforms federal jobs into hunting grounds.
Section 4. Deadly consequences on streets.
And this lack of accountability, it inevitably spills right out onto American streets. Lauren Bonds hits the nail on the head here regarding the core contradiction. She points out that immigration enforcement is a civil matter involving administrative paperwork. It is not life and death combat. Yet these agencies are allowing personnel to militarize the process, using unmarked cars, masks, and deadly force.
Which brings us to the impact on everyday communities. The report documents a lethal toll. including civilians like Johann Sebastian, Renee Good, Alex Pretty, and Dr. Linda Davis. These were all fatalities from 2025 and 2026. And the crazy part, these deaths occurred with zero accountability, fostering this environment where leadership, allegedly, just routinely blames the victims.
Section 5. Who is ultimately responsible?
So who is actually to blame here? While the report argues we have to look past the individual agents and point the finger at the overarching architects of this system, they blame three main pillars. First up, Congress, who are accused of writing blank checks without setting up independent watchdogs. Second, DHS leadership, who have supposedly gutted vital training programs by hundreds of hours. And third, the broader political machine, which the authors claim uses fear-mongering rhetoric to celebrate brutality, creating a totally lawless Wild West environment.
Section 6. The proposed path forward. To fix all of this, the Ohio Immigrant Alliance proposes three pretty radical survival mechanisms for American communities. Number 1, freeze the budget. Basically, stop pouring taxpayer money into a broken machine. Number 2, enact real vetting. That means rescreening the entire workforce and instantly firing anyone with a history of domestic violence, sexual assault, or extremism. And number 3, civil enforcement only. The report demands stripping agents of their guns when handling civil immigration enforcement, arguing that administrative paperwork belongs in offices, not out on street corners.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question from the report. As we look at the data on these 59 agents and the systemic failures that enabled them, we have to ask, will Congress and DHS finally implement radical accountability, or will American streets remain a hunting ground? It's a heavy question for sure, but an absolutely crucial one for the future of public safety. Thanks for joining this explainer. We highly recommend reading the full report and ask yourself, what is the first step we must take to ensure true accountability?